Hello and welcome to the Leathercraft Masterclass, and in this video course we're going to be creating a leather strop. Sometimes called a buff stick or polishing block, the leather strop is ideally suited to keeping a keen edge on your leather knives, skiving knives, and various other bladed tools that you have in your workshop. But in this particular course, we're going to be creating a rather large strop, so you can scale this down as best suits your needs. Below you'll see a link to a PDF download, so be sure to print off the handle pattern in order to trace it onto your piece of wood so that you can cut it out to create the handle component of this build. So now let's take a look at some of the key materials that we're going to need in order to make our strop. So coming back to the table here, we have several different ingredients, some of which you may recognize. The first one here is the actual piece of wood that I'm going to use for the strop. Now, I happened to find this on eBay and it was around the right size. You don't necessarily need these measurements, which I'll be sharing with you in just a moment, but it happens to be around the size that I'm looking for, which will make a large strop. Now, this is American black walnut, but you can use virtually any wood that you like as long as it's stable. I would avoid using any soft woods if possible. I would probably err towards using plywood if you wanted to do this a little bit cheaper. Birch plywood, 3/4 inch or 1 inch, makes a very good piece of stropping material. So probably 3/4 inch or about 18 millimeters if you're in Europe is going to be ideal if you want to go the cheaper route. But if you want to use a nice good figured piece of wood like this walnut, for example, then this would be a good idea. Now the measurements, as I said, it doesn't have to be overly precise, but this is about the right size. So it's just under 28 inches, so just under 710, so it's about 708 millimeters in length. Widthways, it's 103 millimeters, or a fraction over 4 inches here. And the thickness is 22 millimeters, so it is in inches, 7/8 of an inch. And the most important thing is, ideally, if you can, try and buy these in person. Or at least contact the seller if you're buying online, so that you can make sure that it's a perfectly flat, warp-free piece of wood. That's very important. If you're not sure, that's probably one of the reasons I would go for plywood, because at least you have a higher chance of it being nice and straight and very stable due to its inherent stability characteristics. Now, as for leather, the leather that's going to go on the strop is this piece here. Now this is 3.5 millimeter vegetable tan leather, anywhere between say 1.5 to 4 millimeters. It's more important that your strop is nice and flat and straight. If it's not perfectly flat and there's lumps and bumps, you might want to go for a thicker leather or plane the surface down. But the thickness of the leather isn't that important. But one little trick that I like to do